Hello, everybody. Welcome on the Lights on Data show.
Yoo-hoo! Welcome, Shinji Kim. I have the pleasure of introducing our wonderful guest today. Sorry for starting a few minutes late. I hope you're still on the line, everyone. Shinji Kim is the founder and CEO of Select Star, an intelligent data discovery platform that automatically analyzes and documents your data. As you might have noticed, this is part two of how to do data governance better. We've had our wonderful guest before back in April, and we addressed the topic where Shinji shared some of the thoughts and best practices on data governance. As a quick recap, we talked about the challenges enterprises face with data governance, the importance of goals, what are those metrics to measure data governance impact, the tools that can help the data governance, and why quality and trust should be your priority. We talked about many other things as well. So we recommend that you check out that episode on the Lights on Data YouTube channel or any other of your favorite podcast platforms. Today, we will continue this topic with a very, very insightful conversation. Thank you very much for being here, Shinji.
Thanks for having me again, George and Diana. And nice to meet you, Diana, because last
Very,
time I think you weren't here.
yes, I'm very happy to be able to be here today as well. George, would you like to go directly into the topic with the first question?
Yeah, well, Shinji, what have you been up to? First of all, I've seen you've traveled a little bit. You've been to a few conferences, so you've probably, got to interact with a lot of data professionals, kind of finding out their pains and struggles, and how data governance can be better.
Yeah, I just came back home last night from my East Coast trip. Spent a week in New York and another week in Boston, initially attending um, AWS New York Summit, and also gave a talk at Data Driven NYC meetup.
Oh,
It's
nice.
actually the largest meetup on data in New York, has I think 15,000 members, and
Wow.
I used to be
That's
like
amazing.
really big pre-pandemic, and now they are starting to do in-person events again. So very exciting meetup with a lot of practitioners joining the conversation. And last week I was in Boston for CDOIQ at
Hmm.
MIT. It was their 16th um, year of symposium. And that was also a really interesting experience, getting to meet with a lot of decision makers and CDOs of a lot of like Fortune 1000 companies, a lot of traditional companies. So yeah, breaking out the conversation around data governance, how they think about this, and also how do they also um, notice the other trends like ESG or data quality, or even what they call digital transformation happening like throughout the company. So yeah, it's been a lot of uh, exciting conversations and kind of like a stimulation, a great like learning experience as well for me. I gave a talk called Data Governance for Modern Organization at the conference, which had a lot of attendance. I think we had about 450 or more people watching it in person as well as
Wow.
virtually. There were a lot of virtual attendees, and this was actually the first conference that I saw that has done really well with the hybrid attendees and the interaction.
Hmm.
So there were a lot of questions about that as well. And then about a month ago, I was in Las Vegas for Snowflake Summit, which was a lot of fun. That was like a big show.
I've
Uh,
heard.
yeah, seeing a lot of different data tools and companies, and also a ton of new things that's coming out from Snowflake. So yeah, that's me. Been around, traveling around this year a lot. How about you guys? Have you guys been primarily in Vancouver, or were there any events that you were starting to participate? I mean, you do so much online, so I don't know. It's like, oh, if you have time to actually travel physically, but yeah.
Yeah, now that the in-person conferences are returning, I'm hoping to hit a couple. But yeah, as you mentioned, because of the travel time and that I would need to take time off and everything, it's a little bit more challenging. But yeah, I've been to a couple conferences so far, and I feel there's still an appetite, even bigger, for data and for managing that data better. And that's, was one of my questions. If you've noticed in your interaction with if everybody and seeing all the talks, that there's a rise in that appetite for data governance, and more companies are looking into it, and they're understanding the need for it, and they're just not looking only at the shiny part of data science, data analytics, but they also understand that you need that foundational piece in place in order to set this up for success.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, actually, I wanted to start off also by asking you a question because I've had some follow-up conversations about my talk afterwards, and someone have told me that uh, they don't use the term data governance
Mm-hmm.
when they talk to C-level executives about data.
Yep.
And that's because the term governance gives this very controlling connotation or legal or security that executives will just turn their brain off and not listen.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really, in a way, it's true. I think even for me, in the beginning, I didn't use the term of data governance a lot. I used to use more of a term of data management.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they were saying, like, oh, we just call it data management, not governance, because just the governance as a term just turns people off.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I feel like, we call this a data governance industry or a topic because there is a like framework and best practices we're trying to use that I would say can go beyond just what we should call it as a management. Management, I think, can just be also a very broad terms.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious what you think about it because you also as someone who's leading data governance at UBC and talking to a lot of people about this topic, like when you talk to people that are not in the data team, how do you still call it a data governance? And do you try to explain it, or do you try to change some of the wordings so that
Yeah.
so that it is more digestible and
Good question.
approachable? I would say
Great question.
because
Let
we
me
want everyone to be on the same page when we want to execute data governance strategies.
great question, Shinji. Let me flip this around a little bit and ask this question to the audience too. I see Robert Signer is in the audience. He has a lot of experience interaction with a lot of clients in the field. He's been working in data for more than 20 years now. So I wonder if anybody has any suggestions, anything, any other terms that they've encountered as a synonym for data governance, just to make it more approachable. Because you're right, Shinji. I feel sometimes when people hear about data governance, because of the governance piece in it, they tend to see it as a judicial, bureaucratic, controlling, and overall restrictive system, right? And that's definitely not what we want. But also wanted to, before I give you my answer on something that I've encountered, I thought it was, a pretty good term to use as a synonym for data governance. I feel it really is not the same as data management. Data management really comprises all those disciplines related to managing data as a valuable resource. And data governance is one of them. It's sort of like sitting at that centerpiece, according to DAMA. The other areas being, data quality, business intelligence, data privacy and security, data architecture management, and so many others. There are about 11 in total, including data governance. So data governance is just a piece of it, of data management, but a very important piece that ties it all together. And that's really because, at least according to DAMA, data governance is really defined as that exercise of authority and control, planning, monitoring, and enforcement over the management of data assets. And right now, I think this sounds a lot like blah, 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 blah to a lot of people. But it really, to me, it tells us who does what, when, and how when it comes to data. So now to answer your question there, I found some organizations were referring to data governance as data enablement. So I thought that was such a more inviting term that they could easily get the buy-in of their stakeholders and of their leadership, especially. Robert here answered that I had a client that called it information asset management. Sounds too much like data management. Yeah, yeah, it does. I mean, information is a step above data in a way, right? It's data plus context, I guess, gives us the knowledge and information. Yeah.
Yeah, and we definitely have a term called knowledge management as
Mm-hmm,
well, right? When it's
mm-hmm,
not just the physical data assets, or if you're trying to manage also what gets discussed about PowerPoint presentation, different Excel spreadsheets that sits in everyone's computers, plus all the
yeah,
other quote unquote travel knowledge beyond data. That's when I think it kind of goes into knowledge management or information asset management. I think that makes sense.
yeah. Somebody, Robert was saying here, I don't want to intrude on the session, but I recently wrote a piece that he posted a link there. LinkedIn user mentioned that enablement is the best term to use in their opinion. But somebody from the UDA Academy is mentioning that, you know what, I think if we don't call it data governance, we somehow lose the essence of it. And I've heard that too. In my opinion, to me, I don't care what you call it. If that will get you more traction, if that will get you more people to get on board, as long as it's still data governance underneath it all, but we just call it, whatever we want to call it to kind of fit that company culture, I think that's fine with me. Diana, I don't know if you've encountered, similar situations where people don't like that term, but they change it, and it really doesn't matter, right? It's because it's getting the buy-in, and that's the first hurdle.
Yes, while you were talking, I was thinking about a similar discussion that we had regarding data literacy and the fact that it's a controversial term as well, because what does it mean if someone is not data literate? Does it mean that they're illiterate? And this is something that, it has a very negative connotation and it might not be received well. I think there will always be some people who don't like terms. For example, I don't like backlog, the term backlog in sprints, right? And I was thinking, okay, backlog, it means that I haven't done my job and I'm behind, kind of. Can you still see me? Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yes. So a backlog. I was saying that I don't like the word backlog in sprints, but ultimately the question is, does this term have a negative impact on the actual work or the actual traction? And if it does, then we might consider changing it. But ultimately, if people see the benefits and understand what it is about, I think that's the most important piece, because even the best name in the world, if the work isn't done and the
Hmm.
results are not there, then um, well, it's for nothing.
Right. Some other term that I've heard to equate data governance, or this company was using it to equate data governance, was data excellence. What do you think about that?
I think it's too general, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's going too far. Uh, it's like
We're giving.
like what are we really trying to achieve, right?
Mhm.
Like, yeah, understand that it's data excellence, sure, but like, what does that actually mean? Like, what does it actually entail? Yeah, like Diana said, I think it then becomes very generic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, whereas I think that the purpose of enablement or management or governance has the connotation around trying to keep things organized and also in control. Um, I, um, one of the ways that I define data governance is really making data as a trustworthy asset of the company so it
Hmm.
doesn't get misused. And that's uh, in turn putting the organization data in control. Usually, I feel like a lot of the reasons why companies get to a point where we need data management, where data governance, a center of excellence for data, is because companies do get to a point where data is going out of control. It's getting misused. it has wrong information, and the quality may be off. Like people are looking at the same KPI but with different numbers. No one knows who the right owners are. I think this is like where it's stemming out from, and having a good governance management controls underneath, like makes everyone to be able to trust and use their data much better.
I would like to add something here. We had this similar discussion about when we were creating an ambassadors slash champions program in one of the change management projects. And we decided that we're going to call it either or, depending on the company culture. So I believe that every organization has the option to choose a different term if it suits their culture a little bit better. So I think being stuck in a certain term is maybe not ideal. So if to someone enablement sounds awesome, then let's just use that, but do the same things behind.
Absolutely. We have a LinkedIn user here. They're mentioning that as we start going down this road in my organization, we are spending a lot of time with definitions, so we have a common language. And I applaud you for this effort. I think this is a great way to start, and one of the best artifacts to get out there initially, to make sure you have that common verbiage, that common language, you have that common trusted source for your business language and business terms. That's crucial. What do you think about that, Shinji?
Yeah, I think this is the common language, and also making sure you have aliases attached to certain fields, or even on the data modeling side is quite important, because you do want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And I think this, I would say, though, it's great to start off with the common language and the definitions, but it is also an evolving thing. And hence it's important to have the single source of truth of data glossary, dictionary, that everyone can refer to and can contribute to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way I think of it is open your most famous report, dashboard, something that's used on a daily basis. Look at those columns, or look at those terms, and do you all have the same understanding of what that means? And if you were to look at a second report, a second dashboard that surfaces similar things, do those mean the same thing? If you have customer in the first one, customer in the second one, when you're calculating the number of customers there, is it coming, is it calculated in a similar way? And I think it first starts with the definition. Well, what do we mean by customer? And sometimes in different dashboards, customers actually referring to, subsets of your customers, depending on who the dashboard is for, who the report is for. And afterwards, like Shinji mentioned, you should definitely make sure that you're tying it all in with your data catalog, data dictionary. You have those technical metadata described in there, so that your technical team is able to pull those in a consistent manner, and they know where to look for all this data. But it sounds easier than it is, especially if you don't have a tool in place that can help you through this journey.
Yeah, I think here the tooling and the adoption of tooling, so everyone's using the same base, is important. I think from the follow-up comments, it seems like the LinkedIn user was referring to kind of like the language around data governance. So earlier, I think you also mentioned, Diana, not data leaders, more like it was referring to like
Ambassadors,
a
and
ambassadors,
champions.
champions. Would you say it's kind of like similar connotation as stewards? Yeah.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah, because steward, I heard, is like the another word that this person doesn't use. Because it's like who wants to put on their resume that they were data stewards? Like, this is not a fancy term, kind of like almost like a thankless effort. we would call them data leaders or data managers, and that's kind of like the terms that they like using,
Or
which
data
was
governors to make it even more confusing.
that sounds very much controlling now. um, but I feel like having this, like, directly responsible individual, more of a like a there is someone who at the end, somebody who owns this definition
Hmm.
and maintenance of the quality, like a technical owner. I think it's still important to define.
Hmm.
But just making sure that everyone knows what it means when somebody is a business owner versus technical owner.
Yeah. Some other term I've heard instead of data stewards are data curators, trying to equate that from
Trainers.
with a curator within a museum, for example, that they're in charge with different art pieces in a particular gallery, right? You have a curator in there, let's say in a Renaissance gallery, and then they're in charge with all the different paintings, all the different art pieces that are put there for the enjoyment of the audience. But they're also in charge to make sure, are they properly documented? Do they have that label that explain, well, who's the author, what's the title of the piece, maybe a little description or history behind it. And even in the back room, before they go out in the showroom, they're making sure they're clean, restored, right? They're making sure like all the different controls are in place. You have the right temperature, the right humidity. So I thought, yeah, data curator could be a nice
Mm,
synonym as well.
got it. So for us, we recommend our customers to define business owner and technical owner. And so technical owner could fit into more of that regard, where they are in charge of making sure data is up to date,
Hmm.
and it has implemented the way that the data was brought to the system, however they are collected or transformed, or uh, you know they're prepped to get to a place where it is in the data mart or the data warehouse. At the same time, they may not have all the intricacies and understanding of why the data is formatted this way, like
Hmm.
where it really came from in terms of the business context, why this was collected. And that is how we see where business owners needs to come in to provide that business domain context of data. Um, I'm curious, like how and then I think in the beginning, what we also see a lot of customers doing is basically defining those ownership on teams instead of individuals, because it's the group of people that have created the data model and
Hmm.
have um, decided to make that available for the company.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, in a way, everybody's responsible for data quality, first of all. But like you said, yeah, to put the ownership on teams, in my opinion, um, yes, that's a good starting point. But I think within that team, you still need somebody to have that responsibility. Somebody that needs to maybe still provide them with the carrot or the stick to their individual team members and say, okay, well, we got to get this going. We got to get this, up to date. We got to maintain this. I think there still needs to be a one go-to person,
Like an individual.
and yeah, just an
Yeah.
individual that
Okay.
is a first point of contact, and then they can deal within the department and say, okay, well, you should do this, you should do that, because otherwise we could end up in a situation that I don't have time for this, and pointing fingers, saying, oh, well, I've did part of it, and my colleague did the other part, so they should take it on first, and there's a lot of
Interesting.
passing on the buck.
Yeah, yeah. I think that really kind of comes down to the now organization culture and the sizes of the team and all that. Because for a lot of the companies that we work with, it like for them having dedicated teams actually make much better sense, because
Hmm.
people like change roles, and a lot of the team members kind of like understand and have a really good understanding of the same data sets
Hmm.
internally. And I think that eventually it comes down to like, in terms of pipeline, there may be like a one person that's like managing the pipeline, but for like on like if anyone has a question about that data, how do I use this, or like, what is this field mean, like an additional question beyond just the description, really anyone in that team can answer. Like that was really the kind of the positioning that a lot of our customers were thinking about.
Absolutely. Let's take a couple more questions here from the audience. Jason is wondering, any tips on getting the business users buying and on board to improve the data quality? And I really think data quality comes hand in hand with data governance. You can't have one without the other. As for tips, great question. I do have a couple. I want to put Diana on the spot from the business perspective. If you're on the side of the business, what do you feel would get that buy-in from you to be invested in the importance of data quality?
Well, I think the most important thing is what's in it for me, right?
Right.
And we were talking about names. So if I have a quote unquote sexy name, like a curator, and maybe I'll take this, maybe more seriously, or I'll be more involved. And I would like to understand how it impacts me and my work if I'm not involved, if I don't do my part of the work.
Hmm.
So I think creating that desire for the people that we talk so much in change management about, right? So the part of awareness and desire is very, very important. And then I think after maybe I've done well when it comes to data and to data governance, or if I've
Hmm.
done my job well as a business person, I would like to be maybe acknowledged for that in a way or another. So I think a reward system, an appreciation system, some praise, some stars, something like that would keep people engaged and involved. And I know, George, one of the things that you implemented when you started working at UBC was a newsletter, a weekly newsletter, where you communicated to everyone what your department has done or what you were able to achieve throughout, the past week or the past month. I don't remember what the frequency was, and that was received well because people were kept engaged, and probably brought some praise in that newsletter as well for people who went along.
Absolutely. And, communication is key. So I want to come back to this topic actually, because I think we need to discuss a little bit more. But to continue what you said, what's in it for me, I think that's really it. You really need to make it personal to the individual that you're talking to, and then the unit that they're part of, and the organization as a whole. You need to tie it back to their pain points, to their goals. One of the exercises or workshops that I like to do with different business units is, we kind of have a brainstorming session where we go over what are the current challenges, issues that we're facing, and then we're like dividing those within three columns. And one is related to data acquisition or data creation, anything that has to do with that. Then data maintenance, and that's, yeah, a lot of IT, but there's a lot of data entry that happens there. Or as data analysts, we go in there and we need to correct the data, or do a bit of data munging, if you will. And afterwards, the third column is the data dissemination. How does that data get portrayed, within a CRM, within reports, lists that get pulled out, Excel spreadsheets and whatnot? And what are those challenges there? And I feel that a lot of their pain points, a lot of the challenges and gaps that they're having, they can be really fit nicely into one of these columns. And then we can really equate it and see, okay, well, you know what, if we are going to improve the quality of the data, we're going to fill in this gap, we're going to address this challenge, we're going to fix this issue that you've mentioned, and it's the one that you've told us it's an issue, so this is how it's helping you, help us help you, type of a thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think the big part of the getting business stakeholders involved is actually from getting them to use the data more.
Hmm.
As they start using BI tools, as they start seeing more reports, as they start seeing the insights that they can bring to their businesses, to their business decision making by leveraging data, it's going to be very prominent to them that, oh, now I can do this and I want to take a look at this data every day or every week now. I want to also make sure that the data is correct.
Right. Right. And Shinji, how do you think we get the business to use the data more? How do we get them more exposed to it? Do you feel it's the I mean, definitely I think tools nowadays are putting data easier in the hands of business professionals. You don't need to go through IT anymore, or not as much. You still do, but it's not as gated as it was in the past because it's so much easier to kind of plug and play different options and select your data set if you have a tool to do so, and then play with it and get exposed to the issues that that data set comes with.
Yeah, no, I
But
think that's a great question. My understanding of everyone in the company, well, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people, they actually do want to have more context about the work that they are doing on their business domain. And that may not be just the actual like numbers of like sales and finance and accounting and CRMs. I'm talking about what's happening with their customers, users in the industry and the environment that they are in. And because of that, I think shining the light on those types of data that are providing them with more business context than the system of record, which I can call it as more of a traditional indicators of business performance. And in a way, some people call this as a lagging indicator because we are looking at historically how this has been done and we're trying to make a decision. There are also a lot of data that can be collected and be used that are as more of a leading indicator, like how the users are utilizing the platform. What are other companies doing in different areas? It will all vary based on the industry, but I think bringing a lot of these data in light so that they can make a better business decisions utilizing data is one of the best ways to motivate people to start learning how to work with data better.
Thank you. A few more questions here coming up. LinkedIn user, another LinkedIn user. Sorry, your name is not showing up. Is there a best practice for data engineering and data models for data governance for healthcare industry? Oh, that's a loaded question. I need to read it again. So, I mean, yes and no. In so many ways, I feel there's a lot of commonality within the healthcare industry, but also differences depending on your own organization. There are such a thing as industry data models. I believe it's Lynn Silverstone that first created one of these industry data models, and he has a couple of books about it. And I remember it used to come with like a CD. Probably, there's a different method of delivery nowadays, but you could basically purchase the industry data model for the industry data you are looking to to work in, or you had a need for, and it would include the healthcare industry. So maybe you can get some answers there. But I would also start to see what's within your own system. So see if you can get that entity relationship diagram created automatically. And Shinji, can Select Star help with that?
Yes. But so part of the features that we provide from SelectStar is to give you a understanding of how your data is being used today. And one of the new features that we hence released is an entity relationship diagram. Most of the time when you have many different disparate sources of data and you're putting them into a data lake or a data warehouse, it's likely that you may lose the relationships like primary keys and foreign keys that's already built in a different system. Um, by analyzing all the query history and the activities that has happened in different application, our ER diagram will basically put together how your data model currently looks like, because that's how other people have been joining the
Mm-hmm.
keys. So that is one of the features that we help with. Um, this is basically but works really well when you are connecting Select-Star into a data warehouse or a system that people are already actively using. If you are trying to do this from a system that nobody has actually created any models or usage in the past, then I think it's actually better to start from high level, looking at all the tables and how they are connected in the source systems as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Shinji. Now, Adam has quite a few comments here that are really good. I want to bring a couple of them out. First one was when we were talking about, how do we get our clients, our customers, our employees, our colleagues to use data. And he's mentioning if the business is not using the data, then why do they have it in the first place? He had to raise that issue when a client wanted to implement a new CRM platform and expected to include a ton of basically relevant information that would never actually be used. And it's what I call dark data. It's data that we're gathering, that we're collecting, we're storing it for no reason alone, other than just in case type of thing. We're hoarding it, but it's really just making and creating more challenges for ourselves and our company in doing so. Absolutely. Yeah. Have you encountered that, Shinji? Or do you feel that some of your customers that are using Select Star to discover the data that they're having, that they are in the process discovering a lot of the data that they never thought they had? They're like, okay, well, we need a strategy for this, maybe to archive it, maybe to destroy it, or maybe to actually put it to good use.
Yeah, actually, this is one of the main use cases that we help our customers with. Because in the beginning, when we scan their data warehouse and the metadata and its usage, our job is to point out that how much data is actually being used inside the company. What are the duplicated and test data sets that were created but not being used anymore? And what are the reports and dashboards and corresponding data pipeline jobs that are currently running, but the end reports are actually not being consumed.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, a lot of customers, we encourage them to clean up do like a little spring clean of their data warehouse.
Nice.
And that really declutters a lot of the things so that the data model and the actual data becomes clearer to everyone. And they can also start putting in the measures in place around data quality for their most important, most referenced. So if it has a lot of the downstream data sets that it has the most amount of dependencies on, so you can put more emphasis on those data. And sometimes we call this as more of like, we help you to do your Marie Kondo exercise
Mm-hmm.
without thinking and worrying about, oh, can I deprecate this data? Not sure if anyone's actually using it still. Like, we'll tell you if anyone's using it and who is using it the most. Because you may find out that like a older dashboard, you may realize that top users of that are these managers or C-level executives. And you may find that some data is only accessed by, let's say, someone in the IT, for example. And hence, understanding the downstream consumers and their behavior, I would say, is one of the key things when you are key things that can really accelerate your data governance effort.
Mm-hmm.
Which we call data discovery, and is a part that we try to help with our customers.
Nice. Thank you, Shinji. And I think this fits again to the topic that Diana brought up, and that's communication. After you have this data discovery, I think people need to know what was discovered, what's in there, and as we're starting to govern that data, to manage that data, I think everybody needs to be aware of what has been done, what's being done, what will be done, and why. We need to tie back to the goals, the organization goals, the business goals, and how again it's helping that individual, that data professional, that business professional that has a vested interest in this. But stepping back again to communication, Diana and Shinji, I feel this is such a best practice within data governance, and so often overlooked. Yes, we talk about the importance of communication, but then we really forget to communicate the things that we do, the things that we're planning, why we're doing it. It's underrated for sure. And change management overall. I mean, anything that we're doing, anything with Select Star, for example, we're bringing in that change. Yes, a positive change, but a change nevertheless. And I think we need to get people onboarded for them to understand the benefits, have a vested interest in it. Anything else to add there, or I've rambled a lot?
No, but you said everything, so there's nothing to add. um, I think especially with data governance, and especially with data, and especially with these areas where people are maybe not as maybe some of us from the business are a little bit scared because we don't understand. So the more communication, I think it's very hard to over communicate in this case, because before I met George, I had no idea about data governance and things like that. So the fact that I heard things and I started to understand, now I am a big supporter, a big a fan of it, and I try to to promote it as well. So I truly believe that in this case we cannot over communicate, and the more people hear about it, the more people understand, the more faces they associate with this, the better.
Right. There's a side conversation happening here in the comments about data lakes, and Adam is mentioning that data lakes are usually more accurately data swamps in his honest opinion. Robert is mentioning that, yeah, certainly without metadata. They've heard the executives claim we're going to implement a data lake and that will solve all our problems. That's never the case if that data lake is not managed. For sure. We need governance over it as well. We need management over it as well. We can't just let it grow organically without any metadata, like Rob is mentioning there. Absolutely. Shinji, have you encountered that with your clients, that they're using Select Star to try and point it towards their data lake and discover anything that's in there and help them document it?
Yeah, so we do have a couple of customers using SelectStar on top of their data lake. But what they really find in the beginning is just files that has like no, real true metadata. So that comes down to them having to put an effort in to add the descriptions and tagging to kind of at least high level define like which buckets have like what type of tables or data sets.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really it's an exercise that you need a dedicated effort for. And I think this is why more companies tend towards trying to utilize data warehouse or creating their data mart that are more proven, clean, structured data for everyone to use.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of kind of like a ground, like a staging area of any data sources end up here and can be archived, I think it is a kind of where how the data lake is starting to form right now. And because of that, like one of the things that we also recommend is trying to looking into the operational metadata. So when was this data created? When was this last accessed? When was this last usually instead of update, these are it's an immutable type of data usually. So depending on the access level, it might be easier to kind of all put them or migrate them into a bucket called archive. And for the new data, you may just add them into the tagging system as created like in the last 30 days or 90 days, so that it just becomes a little bit more clearer for people that are trying to use the data.
Absolutely. Irina here is mentioning that most of the time data is a product of a business process. If processes are not streamlined and manual, one cannot expect good, usable, and quality data. And yet, there's an expectation of analytics to do the cleanup versus fixing the problem upstreams. How would you recommend going about that? And again, I think we need to tie it back to those issues and the what's in it for me type of thing. And you're right. I think we need to address the root cause. And for that, I think we need that data governance office. We need those data stewards, data curators, data leaders, as Shinji mentioned, to go in there and find out that root cause and fix it. But I really think it's also the duty of these data analysts, data scientists to push for it. So many times they're taking it, in their own hands to fix the problem on the spot, but only temporarily for the project that they're working on. They're putting in all that effort for multiple reasons. One is because they need to get this done. Second, they also have the skills to get it done. And in many instances, data governance is still very bureaucratic and takes a long time to have your place in the queue waiting for your issue to be solved. So then you're just getting in your hands and saying, okay, well, I'm just going to do it now and get it done with. But it's not only with data analytics, it's also with BI professionals. I've seen this in so many instances in companies that are fixing that data just before it gets outputted in the report. They're fixing it as part of the ETL process. And sometimes that's inevitable because they don't have a control over the source systems. But I think there's definitely better ways at doing this.
Yeah, I think what Irina also points out is around communication. And I think that's really the mapping between the business processes and which data or the source systems these corresponds to can really become very hairy, right? So I feel like the customers that has done this very well usually have their own internal documents that clearly lays out the business process first. And then they will point out, this process comes from this system data, and this process has like this system data. Like, once you start laying them out, and it becomes very clear, like it's actually very hard to join them together or actually look at them together because they are in different formats or coming from different places. And I think these are areas that can be discussed with also an engineering team to try to get them into the same format to put it into a like a warehouse or like a single system. Then the end result of the report, dashboards, or analysis can be done much faster and also in more different ways.
Thank you. Yeah, great insight. All right, I see that we're a little bit, beyond our allotted time. So
Alrighty.
yeah, I know, right? It's
It goes so fast.
I feel we could talk about this for hours. So I'm hoping that we can have you back again and continue this series because I see there's a lot of interest. There's some really interesting conversations going on here, and again, I feel like we can talk about this for many more hours.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me again, George. I definitely look forward to listening to more of the conversation that you're having because you get to also have a really great guests. One thing I wanted to leave you with is that, so this is like a one topic that I was talking to a lot of attendees at CDO because part of my talk, I actually talk about centralized, decentralized, and hybrid models of data management office,
Yeah.
and dividing the tasks between the center of excellence data management versus different business domains. I think is a very interesting topic that I think people are starting to grok to, but hasn't seen as many like implementation cases yet. So these are some of the parts that I would love to also hear a little bit more about in your future shows, or we can talk about it next time I come back.
Yeah, all that sounds great, and yeah, I think that that would be a great topic to address for sure. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in, and thank you for all your questions and feedback and comments. We really appreciate all your engagement.
And
Thanks, everyone.
thank you, Shinji, for opening with one question. I think it's the first time we get a question, and I think that was one of the most interesting parts of the whole episode. So thank you for that, and have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah, thank you both. Have a good weekend.